You're going to die.
Maybe not. I'm going to need a gun.
Run! Run!
5 minutes later.
Oh, hell no!
But wait! There's more!
Wait, what?
What the hell are you talking about?
Oh, no, they didn't.
Oh, yes, they did!
Oh, no, they didn't.
Shut up!
You know what? I give up.
Hey guys, it's your friendly neighborhood Dragonslayer here, and today we're going to be talking about a newly released action film that I think you should check out. And yes, I am talking about the one and only modern pencil-killing empty gun clip thrower Baba Yaga, John Wick. Before I start, however, I do want to ask you guys to not only at least watch half of the video, or preferably the entire video to completion, since it greatly helps me out with the YouTube algorithm, so that more people can see this video and make informed decisions to see this great movie.
Do it.
Also, please know that here in these waters, there be spoilers, yar! And that what I'm about to tell you is what I remember from watching the movie a couple of days ago. But with those disclaimers out of the way, let's jump into the dystopian assassin world of John Wick for the last time. So the story picks up right after the events of the last movie, where John has now fully regenerated his shattered skull and ribs from falling off a 20-story building.
My back! Oh, my back!
Lawrence Fishburne gives a speech about John being the Grim Reaper while he's casually punching a training dummy until his fists bleed, and he gives supplies to help him on his quest to get revenge on the Elder and the rest of the High Table, who made his life 10 times more annoying by sicking the entire New York assassin community on him.
Oh my god! Even though they're from... Oh my god!
We then jump straight into the desert, where we see 3 guys on horseback running away from John to, I guess, warn the Elder that he's on his way, but they fail at their job miserably because John quickly kills them off and finds the Elder quite easily, only to find out that the one that made him cut off his finger is already dead / retired or something. I mean, they don't really explain that part well enough, but all you need to know is that this is the new Elder who tells John that if he kills him, the High Table will stop at nothing to avenge him, but as usual, John gives 0 fucks about this warning and kills the new Elder without much difficulty.
Because that's what heroes do.
Moving on, we cut to New York, where Winston and his concierge Charon are summoned by the de facto emergency powers leader of the High Table, Marquis Vincent de Gramont, to question them about their involvement in the events of that night at the hotel in the last movie, that concludes with the Marquis saying that the table is fully aware of his subtle betrayal to them in helping John, and not only does he punish Winston by killing his concierge, but he also revokes his hotel manager status while leaving him alive and blows up his entire New York branch building to make an example of him, which by the way is a very cool piece of cinematography. But my question is this: why did the authorities not even react slightly to a huge hotel building in New York getting blown to smithereens like the World Trade Center?
What?
Surely someone from the Pentagon would have been asking about it. I mean, it's a huge explosion that possibly damaged surrounding government or other private buildings, and no one outside of the assassin world is reacting to it.
Why?
Now, please know that this will not be the only bizarre occurrence throughout the movie where crazy events are happening due to the assassins fighting each other out in the open, and law enforcement doesn't even react to their mayhem. So the only answer I can give you is what Keanu said on a Vanity Fair video, that the movie is set in an alternate reality where countries fight each other with assassins instead of the conventional war way.
Moving on.
So we then jump to the Japanese Continental in Osaka, Japan, where John has a short talk with his old friend and manager of the hotel, Shimazu, or Hiroyuki Sanada, playing as his alter ego again, about what he's planning to do to the table for his revenge. And the quick summary for this discussion is that John tells him that he has no idea what he's going to do yet, but that the end result will be him killing them all, and that true friendship is hard to find these days.
You're right. It's fact.
Shortly thereafter, the Marquise's goons hear from their hired tracker, Mr. Nobody, that John is in the building, and a bigger version of the Continental fight scene from the last movie breaks out due to Shimazu not wanting to give up his friend. John kills a bunch of heavily armored Oni-masked soldiers for 15 minutes. Donnie Yen's character Kane tries to kill John, but fails because he really doesn't want to kill his best friend. Kane ends up killing Shimazu in a duel where he tries to stop him from pursuing John, and the fight concludes with John escaping thanks to Mr. Nobody because he thinks this job isn't paying enough to warrant going after him.
I need that money.
Now, I'm sure many of you really want to know who is this Kane guy, since it felt like he came out of nowhere, and the only answer I can give you is that he is an old friend of John as well that managed to retire like him by offering up his eyes instead, or in other words, blinding himself to the table, but the condition in this exchange for his freedom is that he must reassume his former duties as an assassin if the table summons him to do so, which is exactly why he's even going after John in the first place, because the scumbag Marquis threatened to kill his daughter if he didn't comply.
Yes, you're probably right, Brian. Such scum.
With that lore dumping out of the way, the tracker goes back to the Marquis with his killer dog to demand him to increase the bounty price on John because he doesn't believe the current amount justifies going after the literal Grim Reaper, but the Marquis only agrees to this new price after stabbing the middle of Mr. Nobody's hand with a knife and telling him to prove his loyalty to the table by sliding off his hand from the knife instead of pulling it out, which I have to say was quite brutal.
It's pretty bad.
We then see John return to New York to talk to Winston because he heard news that his concierge died, and he tells John that he can't keep doing the same strategy of killing everyone, especially the Marquis, because all the table would do is quickly find a replacement that can enforce their authority better.
They're like cockroaches!
Puzzled by this revelation, John asks Winston how this whole war he's having with the table can be resolved, but he tells him that what he needs to do is mend his relationship with his Ruska Roma crime family in Berlin and invoke an old high table tradition of challenging him to a duel. By following the old tradition and killing the Marquis in this manner, John would be freed of all obligations to the table, his bounty would be lifted, and both men would have their revenge on the Marquis. Fast forwarding a bit, John ends up finding the hideout of the Ruska Roma in Berlin, and he is almost executed by them until he tells them that he wants to speak to their leader Piotr about being readmitted into the family, but he ends up finding out through his adoptive sister Katia that the High Table sent out one of their representatives named Killa to kill Piotr as a way to set an example because they defended John in the last movie in New York.
Oh, no way!
Seeing an opportunity to save himself from being hanged, John tells her about his plan to challenge the Marquis to a duel, and she tells him that the family will only support him if he kills Killa. God, I really had no idea that Scott Adkins' fatsuit character was named Killa.
I had no idea.
Anyway, John goes to Killa's club to confront him, but he finds out quickly that Mr. Nobody and Kane are also in the club to kill him, and now you would think that in this situation they would start fighting right off the bat, but that's actually not what happens. Instead, they do a game of cards where the winner gets to kill everyone else, and Killa ends up winning because he decided to cheat, which causes another 10 through 20 minute fight scene to happen in the club where Kane and Mr. Nobody decide to help John in killing Killa.
Really?
Really?
To quickly summarize this fight, John as usual shoots everyone to death, Kane and Mr. Nobody get a few scenes of them killing goons, John throws empty gun clips at people's heads, kills a bunch of goons with Viking axes while almost everyone dancing in the club completely ignores the carnage that is happening in front of them, John shoots Killa in the ass, but Killa Scott Adkins manages to kick his ass a few times while throwing him off the second floor of the club where he hits a metal railing. John kills some more goons in the wet first floor of the club with an axe. He throws an axe at Killa's ass, throws Killa and himself down the stairs where the fat bastard finally dies after landing on the floor head first. John gives the final death checkup by shooting him a couple of times in the face and then takes one of his golden teeth as proof of having done the deed.
You did it, man! You really did it!
Moving on, John shows Katya his proof, they do the painful crest ritual to officialize his reinstatement, and the Roma Ruska give Winston the honor of relaying John's challenge to the Marquis because the old man decides to use this challenge as an opportunity to include a few extra conditions to the challenge should John win, which basically boils down to him being reinstated as the manager of the New York Continental and having the Continental itself rebuilt. The Marquis agrees to this duel, and both parties agree in a location curated by the Harbinger of the Table that the duel will be done with pistols on sunrise the next day at the Basilica of Sacré-Cœur. However, the Marquis knows that he stands no chance against John, so he nominates a reluctant Kane to fight in his stead, and the conditions are given that should either the duelist or the sponsor of either group make it late to the duel location, then the other will be executed.
Now that's what I call a challenge.
As a result, John prepares himself for what's coming by taking a new pistol and bulletproof suit from Lawrence Fishburne, and on the shortcut boat ride, John asks Winston to put on his tombstone the words "loving husband" since that is what he truly believes himself to be, which Winston says he will do.
I don't normally get emotional, you know?
Now, the second John comes out of that subway, he gets immediately attacked by other assassins and run over by so many of their cars that at a certain point it felt like I was watching an immortal anime character with bad luck trying to make it to work on time. But the reason this is happening is because the Marquis raised the bounty reward for John to $26 million, and he had people broadcast the bounty for several hours to all the assassins on Paris, so they would either slow him down or kill him.
You rebel scum.
However, this is the literal Grim Reaper we're talking about, so of course all we see for the next half hour at least, though it probably was longer, is just John committing assassin genocide out in the open streets of Paris where for some fucking reason the authorities or the civilians don't even react to what's happening in front of them, because everyone besides the assassins are a bunch of lobotomized lemmings, and if you want to avoid becoming a lobotomized lemming like those civilians, make sure to do what you're seeing on the screen right now since it helps more people see what you're enjoying. But other than that, let's finish this crazy story.
All right, it's time to finish this.
So to summarize the rest of this entire fight sequence, and you'll have to forgive me, but my lungs can only hold so much air to describe this, but John gets up many times right after being completely hit by more cars while shooting at random assassins. He steals a car from an assassin he's killed, and a car chase ensues where he ends up killing assassins while driving with one hand in the roundabout next to the Arc de Triomphe, gets off the car to start killing more assassins who are also on foot in the roundabout while dodging civilian cars and getting hit by a couple more assassin cars. He gets to a building where a cool overhead camera's fight sequence occurs that he's only able to get out of because Mr. Nobody saved him after he saved his dog from being killed by the big Latino chingon goon of the Marquis. John kills a bunch of goons in a long 200-ish something step stairwell who apparently went to stormtrooper school because they can't shoot a single man in the head. John gets kicked back down from the stairs by the Latino chingon goon, and he rolls back to the very bottom while sustaining barely any injuries. Kane, like the good friend he is, helps John make it to work on time by killing more respawning goons. The Latino chingon goon almost kills John, but is saved by Mr. Nobody's dog, who ends up pissing on his face after his master shoots him in the head. John makes it to the duel on time, and he duels Kane in an 18th century style gun duel where he ends up winning by tricking the Marquis into taking away Kane's gun during the last shot, which causes John to quickly shoot the killing blow quite easily, ending this entire crazy story.
Finished it.
However, our badass hero ends up succumbing to his many wounds on the steps of the Basilica as he reflects on his entire life and marriage while a sunrise is occurring, and we are then shown the final scene where Lawrence Fishburne and Winston say their goodbyes to the legendary assassin martyr, John Wick, on the gravestone they place next to his wife's gravestone with the inscription that best described John as a loving husband.
The perfect ending to a perfect love story.
So yeah guys, that's literally the entire plot of this movie, and while some parts of it felt like the director just watched Ninja Assassin and Commando and decided to combine all of their good aspects into this movie due to the ridiculous impermeable defenses John Wick has to wounds, falling off buildings, or falling off 200-ish stairwell steps until the end, I can't deny that this is probably one of the best action movie experiences I've had in a long time.
It was perfect. Perfect.
Now, I do have to nitpick a little bit and admit that the following things I'm about to mention are really the only negatives this movie has, and that it really won't impact your overall viewing experience that much, but you will feel slightly annoyed at the fact that they kept these specific parts in the movie that felt like they didn't contribute anything to the plot except to act as a filler so that the viewer didn't get bored until the next action set piece, so let me tell you what they are.
Shall we start?
Number 1, the realism from the first two movies left them building completely. As you can probably tell from the descriptions I gave to you earlier in the movie of some of the crazy things that John is able to miraculously survive and do despite being constantly hunted and wounded by many hired assassins no matter where he goes, it seems that what they tried to do here is sort of give him like a plot armor, like a really good plot armor until he reached the very end.
Now let's proceed to the next point.
Number 2, Mr. Nobody's character felt very irrelevant in this movie. It seems that the only reason his character exists is just to drive the plot forward to the next action set piece since he is a tracker, plus the only thing we ever find out about him is that he really loves his killer emotional support dog and that the scene where his dog is pissing on the Latino chingong felt completely out of place in my opinion. Other than that, he really doesn't do much else in the movie and we're not told enough to even care about his character overall, but I hope his character will get fleshed out more in future projects. Number 3, Donnie Yen's Kane character needed a little bit more development. Now, I'm sure there will be those of you that'll say, "What are you talking about, man? His character was developed enough as an old friend of John, and that the reason he's reluctantly doing this job is because the Marquis is threatening to kill his daughter if he doesn't obey his orders." And I completely understand where you're coming from, but I personally felt that a normal length movie should have come out in between that 4-year gap between John Wick 3 and 4, where it goes into depth into just how close John and Kane were as friends, and how much he loves his daughter even though he can't be near her, so that it can amplify that strong emotional war we're being shown in the movie that Kane is having every time he encounters John and knows that he must kill him or his daughter won't live to see another day. Again, that is my personal opinion, but this could easily be fleshed out in a future solo movie with this character, so only time will tell.
We'll be waiting.
Number 4, the Marquis was the most underwhelming villain in this movie. The only way I can describe this big bad villain that is supposed to be the literal hammer of the high table is as a lesser version of Kingpin from Daredevil. He hires others to do his dirty work and never handles grave matters himself. He never has a fight scene with John to show how threatening he is in combat. Bill Skarsgård, despite being a very good actor, had a terrible French accent that made him sound like a Scandinavian man trying to sound French when it probably would have been better to turn his character into a Swedish mob boss, and suddenly he turns into an idiot when he doesn't notice the fact that John never fired his last shot at Kane, which is what actually gets him killed.
You're an idiot.
I'm an idiot.
So, since I have told you everything about this movie, my recommendation is that this is a very fun action movie that is going to give you a good time, and my rating for it is an 8 out of 10. It has a few flaws here and there, as I mentioned previously, but they don't take away the enjoyment of the main attraction, which is to watch a badass action movie hero kill off a bunch of bad guys in very creative ways in a very well shot movie with an okay story that gets you interested enough to want to keep watching for that next juicy action set piece. In other words, if you enjoy watching over-the-top 80s or 90s action films, then you will have a good time watching this one.
Great. It's really great.
Now that I've convinced you, how about you go see it already? With that, I wish you guys a wonderful day, stay tuned for future videos, and namarie.